o'clock. I welcome everyone to the council meeting. I declare the meeting open at 7 p.m. The town of Walkerville would like to acknowledge the Kaurna people as the traditional custodians of the land we are meeting on today and respect their spiritual relationship with their country. We recognise the many generations of stewardship the Kaurna people have provided to this land and respect that their cultural heritage and beliefs are as important today as they were for their ancestors. We have everyone present other than Councillor Coleman, sorry I had a mental blank then, who is on leave of absence. We have Councillor Stephen Furlan via Teams because he's in Queensland, probably a tad warmer than it is here. And also the Communications and Marketing Manager, Sarah Spencer, is also coming in via Teams. Although we won't be seeing her, but I believe she's listening to us. Councillor Coleman is on a leave of absence until the 30th of April 2022. And I spoke to him the other day and he's hoping to come back and be available as of the 1st of May. Councillor Wilkins did have a leave of absence but has been able to attend tonight, so I think we need to amend this leave of absence from March 2022 till yesterday and then start it again tomorrow.
Yes.
Would that be the best? Mm-hmm. 20th of May. Yeah. Would someone move that the leave of absence and the leave of absence of Councillor Wilkins be approved? Would someone move? Thank you, Councillor Bishop. Seconded, Councillor Joshi. All those in favour? Thank you. Carried. Do we have to do that one separately as well, or is it?
Here is it.
Yep. Okay. Yeah. Are there any additional leave of absence? Anyone else going away? No? Right, minutes of meeting. Confirmation of minutes have all been circulated and I would imagine read. Would someone move that they be confirmed as a true and accurate record of the proceedings? Thank you, Councillor Bishop. Seconded, Councillor Joshi. All those in favour? Thank you, carried. A special meeting held on the 28th of March that also has been circulated. Would someone move that those minutes of the special meeting be confirmed as a true and accurate record? Thank you, Councillor Ashby. Seconded, Councillor Bishop. All those in favour? Thank you, carried. Are there any declarations of interest? The other day you said you were a coach.
Not anymore.
You're not? Okay, thank you. Because you just mentioned it and just my ears pricked.
Yeah, no anymore.
Not this year?
Trust me. And to be honest, I don't think an under 9s coach this year, I don't think I would have any persuasive powers at a committee anyway.
It could be a perceived.
My 10, yeah.
There are no deputations, representations or presentations. The Mayor's Diary. The Mayor's Diary has been tabled. Does anyone have any questions? Yes, Councillor Joshi.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to ask you, the meeting that you had on the 12th of April about the Walkerville Oval redevelopment, how did that go? Because we had emails to and fro on that same day on the 12th by the club president, Mark Weber, as well as Ryan Curry. So I was just wondering, based on the emails and the discontentment, how did the meeting go? I was just wondering what was the outcome.
Very pleasantly, actually. I was joined by, and please interrupt if you want to, Councillor Furlan. Councillor Furlan was there as well as the Deputy Mayor, as was Scott in his acting CEO position, and we also had one of the architects there. The architect took, because we only had the two, we did invite Matt Hobby, but he was unable to attend. He attended a meeting the next day the Thursday, and he met with Councillor Ferlin and Scott because I was unable to attend that day. The architect took them through the design, showed them all the seating, the undercover seating, how the seating would work on the ground floor, how the seating would work near the kiosk where it was waterproof, and then probably a little bit under if it rained they could possibly get wet in the sort of the pergola area. He also talked about the terracing, which we haven't finalised yet, but it's sort of that we put it up on the screen. We also talked about the memorabilia areas, and they made some suggestions about memorabilia and how you could deal with it.
In regards to on board, digital
yes,
on board as well, and storage places.
And bringing down screens and things. And then we got involved, then we started talking about the kitchen. It was pointed out at that meeting that their requirements from I think they're called the data sheets, which are all their requests, which had gone back to the architect, had increased the price of the 3 kitchens. That's the kitchen in the function area upstairs of the Warwick Street side, the kiosk kitchen, and then the kitchen in the Smith Street side increased the cost by about $800,000. And the fact that the cost management committee would have to review that and try and bring it back. They just had some questions. They were happy with how the new servery was designed. Please help me, folks. I don't think they raised any other. They didn't raise anything about the balcony. Okay. They didn't raise anything about the grandstand. Oh. Nothing. And they had a perfect chance to actually ask questions.
Your worship, questions were asked about the linear meters in front, as to what the linear meters in front of the building were at the time. They expressed their contentment and they were quite happy with the change rooms and the downstairs facilities. And then there was a couple of general operational questions about
this is what happened
in between the 2 storage areas, whether it would be a fixed wall, whether it would be chain like cyclone fencing. Yeah. Again, the response was that will come.
And they also talked about how they'd have to hose down the change rooms when players came in muddy, and that was due to the architect. So they
the architect would. That was based on certain information that wasn't provided in the room data sheets, but the architects have taken that on board, and they'll make some amendments during the detailed design phase to factor that in.
Okay, that's interesting. I'm happy to hear it as a positive.
Could I just add a few comments?
Yes, Councillor Ferlin.
Yeah, sorry. Look, I was at both those meetings, and I found the 3 of them, Mark, Ryan and Matt, very professional. They know the operational aspects of those clubs, and those clubs are in very safe hands. Their focus was very much on the operational side of things, and I think we touched on them. The logistics with the keg room, whether that was needed or not, where the timekeepers would be located. They touched on all the audio visual. They just wanted to map out how they would manage staff from the cafeteria downstairs or the canteen downstairs to the upstairs area. I was expecting there would have been a lot of debate around the balcony. Unless I misread it, there was very little conversation around that. The architect was clear on the issues around that. We did speak about the how to go from the main dining area upstairs to the open area outside, and how that would work logistically and ensure that was open, but also minimise impact from the elements. So look, all in all, I found the conversation really good. The impression I got, they were appreciative of the project, understood the limitations with certain aspects, balcony, etc. They wanted to understand some of the operational things and how it would work for them. And there was conversation obviously around the timelines of when, the end dates and so on. There is a motion later, and I'll probably speak to a little bit more of those things, but look, it was, I'm glad I met the 3 of them, and, I have to say I'm pretty impressed with them as good operators, and I think it was a great opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you. Also at that meeting we advised them that Scott and I had been working on trying to, because they had the oval, they'd asked for the oval for the 9 games. It was 9.
That's correct. First 9 games of the season.
Yeah, but there was a mix up, as in Scott thought they just wanted the 9 games and was going to do an ATCO shed for changing and that sort of thing. They really wanted the club rooms. So between the two of us, we sort of brainstormed it and came up with the idea of actually demolishing the building on the Smith Street side, the bowling club, and leaving the grounds, the sports area free until the end of May, and they're very happy about that. The last game, which is June the 4th, I think.
That's correct, yes.
Yep. We suggested that we could run a caravan barbecue and make it a bit of a festive occasion, as this is the end of football, football being played with these facilities, and to start a new one. So they were very keen on that, and I believe it was discussed with Matt on the following day when I wasn't there.
That's correct, Your Worship.
Thank you.
Councillor
Shall I also add in why we 3 met on the 11th of April, which is in your diary here?
You may, yes.
Okay. I met with Matt Hobby on the 8th of April, and I took notes, and I have my notes here. Number 1 priority was that they wanted access to the club rooms, and this is in the order that he brought it up. Access to the club rooms. In May, they thought they had access to the club rooms. They had not realised it was only the oval. So I reported this back to our mayor and our CEO, and they then brought it up later. Their concern was that they needed to serve alcohol to make money. Number 1, we've solved that one. Number 2, and to quote Matt, it's about tiers, not a grandstand. He said he wanted tiered seating. He does not have to have a grandstand, and it does not have to be undercover. And we have spoken about that, and I'm sure that that's what they said to you, is correct?
Yes, correct.
And I said that the tiered seating was going to be within the landscaping, and he was quite happy about that. And subsequently, I've looked at all the photos that we've been sent of fabulously designed sporting facilities, and not one of them has their tiered seating undercover. So I said the tiered seating.
So can you just repeat that?
They said which bit about
that last. Yeah.
About the fact that all the letters, or not all the letters, we only got 25 of them, and 1 was yours. The photographs that we were sent by various people showing tiered seating, I looked at them today, and not one of them had the tiered seating undercover. So I think that we are offering an amazing facility by having undercover spaces within this facility.
They all have undercover spaces though, correct?
Correct, but their tiered seating is not undercover.
It'd be great to have undercover tiered seating.
Yeah, but we don't have 20 million. He was concerned about the upstairs space where there is seating, and he wanted it to have the doors, not doors, but concertina doors that back in onto themselves, so the space became one big space. I said that had already been decided by the committee, and we were going ahead on that. He was concerned about the coaches' boxes. I said that is within the landscaping, and that is yet to be dealt with, but we're aware of it. He made no mention of the memorabilia. Absolutely none. I brought it up, and I pointed out that it was being dealt with within the foyer. And he agreed with all that I had said. Here are my notes and my drawings as to where they want the boxes, coaches' boxes, and I thought that I should then report to both our mayor and CEO. So that's what that meeting's about.
Thank you. Does anyone have any more questions about the
Well,
Mayor's Diary?
yes, Your Worship. I spoke to two of the individuals that were at these meetings, and that's a different story to the one I got. I think it's the interpretation you put on some of the conversations that influences the decisions, and maybe that's in my case as well. But yes, the primary purpose for the meeting was to get access to the grounds, the way I understood it, and they do want some tiered undercover seating, tiered maybe not, but they have. I think that's still their major concern. If we go ahead without that, I think
We're actually discussing the Mayor's Diary.
okay.
So
Well,
you can,
what
put
was
that.
That's not the Mayor's Diary.
I
I think it's
mentioned
exactly the
we
same
had another
thing
meeting.
there.
Okay.
No,
Exactly the
I
same
mentioned-
thing.
Councillor Ashby can raise that quite well in the motion, your motion.
I
respond to
mentioned
that.
in the Mayor's
Yes.
Diary as having a meeting.
Just talking about the
With-
Just a point though, Mayor, and I think as Councillor Ashby did touch on, I think we do have to have respect that when the clubs are coming in to meet with you, they're in a position where they need to work constructively with you to at least edge their way towards something, because they are a long way behind where they would like to be, and they are at least trying to secure the running of the club and the upstairs area. They do want the tiered seating. Okay, I can promise you that. I actually spoke to Matt Hobby tonight, and he said absolutely they do.
They
So
do
anyway,
want the tiered
yeah.
seating, and he wants it out on the terrace.
He actually, subject to interpretation, and I asked him directly, he said no, he would love to have the balcony undercover with tiered seating. I mean, they've got it now, why would you take it away? Why would you take something away from a group of people and expect them to... Anyway, look, we'll get into that later.
We won't go any further because we'll just continue to argue the point.
Yep.
But would someone please move...
No, I have a couple of questions regarding
Yeah, sure.
regarding those points. So, two things. One is, is that the first time that the architects had been on site with the clubs?
No, they've met them before.
The first time they've had a meeting with them, but there's been several correspondences previously,
Yeah.
particularly with regards to the room data sheets, which weren't completed in full, and there has been plenty of correspondences previous.
Okay, it's also interesting how the meetings are now occurring, which is something that I've been speaking about for quite a period of time, that we need to hear from the clubs. It's interesting that now all of a sudden there seems to be a desire to go and meet them. But I'd also like to ask, was there an agenda produced for the meeting?
Your Worship, no, there wasn't an agenda produced for the meeting because the meeting was effectively not a formal meeting as I understand it, Your Worship. It was a get-together to discuss the project.
Yep.
And to your point, Councillor Williams, we have met with the clubs a number of times in the past as part of this project.
The committee hasn't. We haven't at any stage.
The committee may not have, but if you recall, one of the very first resolutions of the committee was to appoint myself as the direct and sole liaison for the committee to the stakeholders.
Yeah, well, it was irrespective, Scott. We haven't heard from the sections at all at any stage. Which I think when you look at
no, we have.
but we haven't.
We've done the consultation before.
No, we haven't. We haven't.
There has been consultation before.
The postcard, sorry.
Yes, Councillor.
The postcard, was that consultation? Was that more saying that was...
No, we've been meeting. If you remember, we had a stakeholder meeting before COVID. If you remember, we had several of them, and everyone was invited.
Were there
At the
minutes?
bowling club.
At the bowling club.
okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And there were
Right,
several
we're
meetings.
getting quite off the subject. Would
That
someone
was on
please
different
move?
plans. Were there minutes taken of that meeting?
There were, because it was with Mark Band.
No, from the meeting from the 12th with the clubs. Were there minutes taken?
No, I
from
don't
that
believe
meeting?
so.
No,
So
just the
there's
notes.
no minutes taken from that meeting.
No, there were just notes because of the architect's questions.
Okay, good.
And the answers.
I'd just like that on record that there were no minutes taken from the meeting. So,
Would someone at the time, Secretariat actually had COVID. Would someone please move that the council receives and notes the Mayor's Diary? Thank you very much. Councillor Bishop, seconded. Councillor Bishop, thank you. Councillor Johnson, thank you. All those in favour? Thank you. Carried. Reports from elected members having attended training conferences or seminars. Has anyone been doing anything? Right. Reports from elected members having attended subsidiary board meetings. Yes, Councillor.
I was at Dunedin Water, but the minutes are very thorough, so I'm quite happy with them. If there's any questions when we get to the minutes, feel free to ask.
Thank you. Questions from the gallery? Is there any questions?
Your Worship, as at 5 p.m. today, there were no questions from the gallery.
Thank you. Questions without notice. Are there any questions without notice? No?
Sorry, I do have a question. I'm just trying to find it. It was more around, sorry I just can't exactly find it, but it was when we're considering, and I'll be careful how I ask it because I don't know if it has actually been defined, the function agreement. I mean, Councillor Bishop has raised it continuously about being a wedding venue, etc., etc. And I'm not going to put administration in that position because I don't know if it has actually been thought about in that particular light. However, if it was a wedding facility, and I'm thinking about the management agreements, I'm trying to be constructive here.
Mm-hmm.
If most people plan their weddings a good 12 months out, like it's not unreal, 8 to 12 months, it's not going to be too, if we're going to work with fixtures, etc., how would the management agreement work when people are going to ask, can we have this space on such and such a day? And how do the clubs work around that?
Yep. Would you like me to answer that, Your Worship?
Yes.
So, Councillor Niki, the provisions of the management agreement haven't been solidified yet, but this is a very stock standard approach to multi-user facilities these days. Spitballing it, the tenant clubs would likely have access to the lower level of the building, change rooms, sports specific facilities all year round, including the kiosk. However, there would be conditions built into their lease license agreement which allow them to utilise the upstairs area on certain days, certain times as negotiated for events, Friday night drinks, what have you. There would always be a provision built into the agreement that would allow the council to have X amount of events throughout the course of a year, which again, it's a very standard approach these days to multi-user facilities. Yes. Holdfast Bay, Campbelltown have indicated that they approach their lease licence structures very similar in that council has overarching rights for a certain number of events, functions throughout the course of the year, and that just gets dictated and negotiated with the clubs.
So do the clubs they don't have priority over that for the majority of the year? They don't have that priority?
Through your worship,
they've been pushed down. I'm just interpreting that. Yeah. That's the first time I've heard it. They're actually being pushed downstairs.
But it's not, we haven't decided it yet.
Through your worship.
But that's a key point, Mayor. We're designing around something we don't know what we're doing with it.
Councillor Niki, that has actually, it's never been formally discussed as far as how the agreement would go, but that has been discussed in the past. The clubs Sorry, with who? With the committee, it has been generally discussed as far as the approach. The clubs this has been approached with the clubs previously as well, on the basis that the funding was obtained, that the facility would be a community and sports facility, not a sole sports club.
I appreciate that. And I suppose going back 3 years ago, I can't remember when we were first talking about all this, I believe that when we talked about a community hub and whatever, we were talking about daytime use of the facility, etc. And I was strongly in agreement with that. And we'll have a facility sitting there during the day, and we could be maximising it for other community uses. There's talk about yoga or whatever it might be, because the 39 Smith Street was sort of being pushed out. So I could see there could be some utilisation of that space. Not once was I ever aware, and this was never brought to council, that from at night time the clubs are going to be pushed down or away. And I think that's a key point for me. My coming into the meeting the other 2 weeks ago, the special council meeting, there was no chance of an informed decision because there was no workshops. We weren't able to flesh a lot of this detail out, and I really feel that we should have had a management agreement on the table earlier. We should have had workshops, there's lots of questions I and many others could have asked that could be constructive and help build this into a more amicable sort of solution at the end, where we're all probably, everyone's going to have a little bit of different taste in what something looks like, but I think the function of it was always going to be the priority. And I remember asking our CEO Kiki at the time, like 3 years ago, what's the number one objective of this? And it hadn't been defined. I don't think we ever actually got to that point. And that's where I am at today. I've come into a meeting 2 weeks ago saying,
remember that?
what is that?
It's the principles for the development that the council.
Yeah, the guiding principles of development is to put clubs first.
It also has the
Don't
facilities.
disadvantage clubs. It says it quite specifically in there,
It's
Mayor.
not just the clubs, it's
But
there
it
are
still
other
says it.
sporting
Do you want to
groups.
read that out? It does say that, Mayor. It does say that.
But we have other sporting groups that actually
Oh, yeah,
utilise
exactly.
it, want it
And
for
we
a
can
Saturday
share that
night.
space. Absolutely.
Your Worship, Councillor Necki, perhaps you've misunderstood what I was saying. I wasn't.
Yeah, I know.
I'm trying to articulate perhaps better what I said before. So the agreement would cover the facility. The primary location for the clubs would be downstairs because of the change rooms, the kiosks. That's where they predominantly operate from. The feedback that we've been given from the clubs is that, with the exception of the grandstand, upstairs it's more of an after hours and functions based provision of services. So they would still have access to the facility throughout the course of the week, the year, with the exception of X amount of dates as negotiated with council for them to hold events, as well as council being able to hold events during the course of the day to activate the space throughout. So the intention is not to push the clubs down so that council can utilise the facility after hours each night. That's not the intention. It would be negotiated in terms of the lease that council could hold after hour events there on certain days throughout the course of the year.
Okay, well, I think it's very important that we do establish this and even strengthen it even more so because, again, Councillor Bishop's comments last week or 2 weeks ago about $3,000 a week and 52 weeks a year. It's basically saying the upstairs area is going to be
a Wednesday wedding. So you're going to deny a Wednesday lunchtime wedding because the sports club thinks they want it on a Wednesday evening starting at 5 o'clock.
As long as you can open
My
up.
stepdaughter's getting married on a Monday,
Okay,
on
so
a Sunday,
Bishop,
on a Monday lunchtime. Would you deny $3,000 to the council because the sports club
so
is
during
meeting?
the day?
Yes,
During the
she's
day.
getting
Yeah,
married
no.
on a Monday at midday.
And they're going to have a reception in the function centre till what time?
They actually have it booked for 24 hours because they're paying a freaking fortune for it.
So what are you going to do with all
24,000.
the...
We're going
So
off
with all the
topic
junior
here.
teams, no, this is critical, man.
No,
We've got
it's
all
not.
the junior
Well,
teams
why
that
don't
train
we
there.
just
Councillor
leave
Nick, can I
the
ask-
sports club
Yes,
and we give
Councillor
all
Wilkins.
the money and we
Councillor
build
Bishop,
a fabulous facility over
So
the
the
bottom.
facility-
Councillor Wilkins would like to
So-
speak.
Yes.
The facility is available to be hired out at the moment. That is correct, isn't it?
Correct.
After all, I had my 21st there.
Did
Almost
you?
20 years ago. Right? So there is no real change that I can see because we haven't seen any management agreements and we'll, as I understand it, get a chance to view those before they're signed off because they are a lease agreement in effect that says anything different to that. So I think we maybe jumping the shark a little bit on this one. And I understand your concern, Councillor Nenke, but we don't have the information to make that decision now. As I said, the facility is available to be hired now. I don't see if it's used as a venue that makes any significant difference.
And it has been hired out previously by other sporting clubs that perhaps practice there. Netball doesn't practice there, obviously why. They've got a lot of, they need a lot of courts, but they like to use the facilities, hire the facilities for varying, functions to do with
Award ceremonies.
awards and passing out numbers and things.
And I'm absolutely supportive of that. And that's what I always thought was going to happen. It was going to be a mix of sporting clubs and during the late afternoon, during the day would be opportunities for, I don't know, meeting, conference rooms, school usage. It could be all sorts of things during the
We
day.
want it used
Community
24/7.
hub, that's the community hub.
Councillor Lenke, and that is the intention and has
Thank
been
you.
the intention.
Excellent.
It would be, and for you're talking about council hiring out for a wedding or anything, like you said yourself, weddings you generally book 12 months in advance or X amount of months in advance. That's a simple case of council booking it in with the clubs. You're not permitted to utilise the facility for your services on this date next year because of this event that we're booking in. It simply operate that way.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
Right.
Although we haven't seen any of that.
That's okay.
Yeah.
No, not yet. Questions on notice, there are none. There are no petitions. Motions without notice. Is there any motions without notice? No. Right, we move on to motions with notice. Councillor Ashby.
Yes, and I'd just like to move that we do receive this motion. And to me, it's quite straightforward. If you've read it, I think it was prompted. Well, firstly, let me say I have voted in favour of the project going ahead all along. But following the uproar that I think our last decision of council created, I became quite concerned about it. I was always pretty one way or the other, but I didn't really want to see any delay, given that there were implications in terms of funding. I believe that as a result of a lot of what's happened recently, there has been conversations with government and politicians, and my information, none of it confirmed, but is that it should not present a huge problem to seek some sort of a delay in terms of funding. So anyway, I wanted to put my thoughts together because I find it's a lot easier to think them through when I've got them on paper. And we look like kicking the sports clubs out on the 1st of May. We haven't gone to tender, we haven't got a firm price on which to sign a contract, and I just thought it was very poor business to start thinking about doing anything much. Now I realise delays, we have to do the prudential review, and we have to sign off on the project. But anyway, that has happened. The clubs have got access to the Oval, so I'm quite pleased about that. And really, I'm not going to go through this whole paper. Read it. I hope that the Oval Development Committee will consider some of these issues, because I think that if we don't listen to what the clubs are telling us about their seating requirements, I have been to a lot of sports grounds in recent times, and I would say that there's a bit of tiered seating somewhere in most of them, and I'd say most of them have cover. But I just will say a few of the things that I gleaned with a couple of phone calls today, and I think, yes, they're very concerned about seating, covered seating of some description. Nobody wants to go to a football match and stand there all day in the rain, and basically we don't cater very well, I think, with the current design for that. Anyway, I think that's enough.
You do say in the beginning of your motion that there are various things that haven't been done. I think if I can ask the acting CEO to answer those, because we have gone through them before, of why they can't happen.
Yes, I've had the same conversation.
Yes, I understand
that, and I concede that, and I think I've just pointed that out.
Not all of them, but they're on the agenda. I just think for the sake of anyone watching, that just to address that this isn't quite accurate. I can understand your frustration, but it has to be done in a certain way. Do you want to reply to that?
As Councillor...
Just those 4
yes,
points.
as Councillor Ashby pointed out, that we did have a previous conversation with regards to the prudential review, tender, and fixing a firm price for the contract itself. The prudential review cannot start until we're at least 75% of the way through the detailed design phase. That's been indicated by BRM Advisory, and obviously tender cannot really can start until such time that we've got some form of detailed design to go to the market to, and some firm costings and advice from the prudential review itself. So that was the sequential order that has been advised to the committee in the past, as well as Councillor Ashby when we had a discussion.
Thank you. Right, you've moved this, Councillor Ashby. May I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Wilkins. All those in favour that Council receive and note the information report? Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Furlong. I just remembered you then. Thank you. Carried. Right, we move on to motions with notice from Councillor Ninke, 13.2.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Do I read it out?
No, you don't need to read it out.
Okay.
If you're happy not to read it out, if you're just happy to move it.
Yes, I'm happy to move it.
May I have a seconder, please?
Actually, no, I will read it out, actually, if that's okay, just for those that, for clarity. That Council rescind point 5 only of CNC 263/21/22, which reads that the concept designs and floor plans appearing as attachment C to this report be endorsed and adopted as the final designs for the Walkerville Oval redevelopment, and that with the exception of minor amendments made during the detailed design phase as they relate to the internal operational use of the facilities, the building design structures, associated infrastructure and floor plans, etc. be frozen so that no further material changes can be made. And in lieu thereof endorses the following: that the concept designs and floor plans as endorsed as part of CNC 263/21/22 be revised to include a balcony to the upper floor of the facade of the southern building, and that this final concept design proceed to the detailed design phase, along with the following detailed or design instructions to provide direction to the architect. Remove roof overhang as identified on the southern end of the building, and use savings to include a balcony across the front of the building of sufficient depth to accommodate a 2-tiered or split level floor similar to the building at Campbelltown Memorial Oval. Consider extending the ground floor forward and reducing the depth of the upper function room and the kitchen toilet area where possible, whilst maintaining required operating dimensions.
Thank you, Councillor Ninke. There was have you got a seconder there? A seconder, please. Councillor Ashby. I suggest for us to ask questions of Councillor Ninke, that we suspend standing orders for.
Sorry, could I actually just read the preamble of that?
Yes, if you wish.
Thank you. And the reason I'm doing this is because I'm
struggling to find it.
Page 3.
It's on the agenda.
I'm struggling to find it.
Page 4.
Page 3, Councillor Bishop,
Thank you.
item 13.2.
My
Computer's having problems.
having problems.
So I just want to read it because there was a point in here which I just want to clarify. So, and this is true. Like I sat down the other day, it's Thursday. It was early Thursday morning, and I appreciate we had to have the agenda written. So to be honest, I was fighting between getting prepared to go away for the weekend and also trying to get this completed. So it was a little rushed, and I just want to clarify that. But this is not a motion that I am happy with. I'm actually extremely disappointed with where we're at today. I was really looking forward to this development. The building looks sleek and modern. It looks great on paper and will look great when new, but it will get older, and its glossy appearance will lose its edge, and its functionality will become the item that will stand the test of time. So it's about the functionality to me. Big and sparkly is not always best. Future maintenance, replacement and operating costs should always be a driver for design. I think people have worked extremely hard on delivering it. I think the acting CEO, Scott, has no doubt worked extremely hard on this. And this also makes me quite sad, to be honest, given the amount of work the administration have also put into it, along with the committee and others too. The fact that people have worked hard to get to this point makes it difficult for anyone to speak against it. And trust me, I don't appreciate having to do this at all. But somewhere along the line, and within the process that was chosen to be followed, and that's important to me, it's about the process that was chosen to be followed, because I have asked for workshops and we've had nothing come forward. But we missed the target and ended up with a $9.5 million design that the majority of our community are against. And I say the majority because, like or not, the sports club is a place that connects many of our families together, delivering essential community outcomes. And even for ratepayers that are not aligned directly to the clubs, their neighbours or friends probably are. It is important to get this right. And again, I do ask, for everybody to think, what more community outcomes does the council deliver than what the club is actually doing with connecting families together? It's not the ukulele club or yoga, it's a sports precinct, and lots of families do go there. I think we're honest, and actually, I think if we are honest and actually conducted a community engagement that provided design options, the majority of results would have included either a balcony or grandstand. And the sheer number of people that have written to us reflects this. I can absolutely confirm that there are a lot more people bemused and upset at the design than have actually contacted us. Again, and you asked earlier, I was the under-8s footy coach, and I still have people come to me a lot through that interaction. And just on the engagement, I was curious as I reflect on.
Can you just read the
No, I'm going to say this, Mayor, that with the Mindindi traffic assessment that we did, the Hamilton Reserve, we set up a gazebo, and we had staff and elected members out there talking to residents, writing down on post-it notes, sticking them. We didn't do this for our biggest project. And did we ever set up a gazebo?
We did. We didn't set up a gazebo.
Where did we do this?
But we certainly met at the bowling club.
I was there that night. I didn't remember
people. We did it over 2 or 3 nights.
I didn't see people writing down.
Anyway.
Okay.
We had a scribe. Mark Bam was scribing. Employee of his. Anyway, keep going.
And I find it really disappointing that the only elected members that like this design are those that have nothing to do with this precinct and likely never will, particularly not in a meaningful, regular occurrence. And I'll come back to this point because I'll explain why. So why are we proceeding with this current design? If the process was run differently, with more communication and more workshops, the decision path would have taken different turns along the journey. We would have ended up with a very different design today, and one that we all would be comfortable with. Everyone has opinions and different tastes, but the functionality would have succeeded the appearance. Again, it's about the functionality succeeding the appearance. Our guiding principles of putting clubs first and not disadvantaging clubs would have been achieved. Preferably, I'd love to request an extension, just as Prospect Council did. Buy some time to get this right, so we as a council can find the right decision, fit for our community, fit for its sports precinct location, fit for a daytime community hub, all without exceeding budget. However, this discussion was put at our last meeting and was turned down. Perhaps another elected member or a member of our administration can revive this. I'm aware that Lucy Hood and Treasury is actually open to it. The motion I've put forward is looking to save money from removing a superfluous architectural feature, being the roof overhang, and add a functional feature, the balcony, what the community clearly want. We are elected members. We are elected to represent our community. We must listen to them. And I just want to come back to that point about, I think it's really disappointing that elected members that like the design of those that have nothing to do with the precinct and likely never will. But however, I did say particularly not in a meaningful, regular occurrence, because I did speak to a elected member today, and it was brought to my attention that what didn't read well, and I absolutely respect that. So I just want to say that, I respect that in reading, and after speaking with that elected member, that it can be read in a disrespectful and insulting manner, and I sincerely apologise for this. But the intent of the preamble was really trying to be respectful, hence, commenting on Scott's thousands of hours that she's invested, and I also wanted to be constructive and open. However, when I was writing this, I was trying to have elected members to understand the concerns of those in the community that interact with the precinct 3 to 4 times a week, training nights, game days, and also just casually watching the seniors A's and B's on a weekend, or just going down to watch a game of cricket. It's these visits for many people that help build their sense of a Walkerville community, to sit next to other members of our community, connect in a meaningful way and build relationships. To me, this is what the point of the community grant was. So to explain this paragraph, I'm simply asking all elected members to consider in what capacity you will use the precinct in comparison to those that use it regularly and have been writing into us. I believe that this is the market that we need to focus our decision making. So again, I do apologise if that was misinterpreted. Thank you, Mayor. I'm now done.
Right, we have a mover and a seconder, and I suggest that we suspend standing orders for 15 minutes, in which people can ask questions and of either the acting CEO to do with pricing, etc., or clarity from Councillor Nenke. So if everyone's in agreement, would someone move that, please? Thank you, Councillor Bishop. A seconder. Thank you, Councillor Wilkins. All those in favour? Thank you. Carried. Right, for 15 minutes.
All right, I'm going to jump in right then and there. And Councillor Nenke, look, I probably am a bit disappointed with the way you stated. I do like the design. Yes, it's not everything to everyone. And I am a Play Life member of the club, and my kids will play sport there. So I think you're probably maybe speaking for more people than you think when you made that statement, and understand that maybe you've reflected on that since. Look, my main concern with this whole thing is that there's a lot of misinformation out there. And I don't know if that is because the council has not provided enough information to the stakeholders. The stakeholders have misrepresented that information through to the community, or we just haven't engaged the community enough to give them a view on what this is. So a little bit of, one letter from the sports club has led to, what did you read? About 25 emails. I've never had as many emails about an issue as what I have in this past fortnight. Hence why I'm making myself come here tonight for the short amount of time that I have, so that we can discuss this through, and hopefully this is a major project. We want to get this right. The last thing we want to do is start this off with a massive amount of community backlash. For me, there's a couple of things. We really need to know exactly what the sports club need, not want. In writing, it has to be signed off. And I think this is probably a bit of a problem with the project. We never had a statement of requirements that I know of that was signed off. If we don't get that, we'll never actually reach a consensus, and we'll be forever saying, but what about? And then that should finally result in a communications plan to the community saying the letters for the presence state in writing that they are happy and endorse the design, because until we get that, there will be continual grumblings among the community, which I don't think any of us want, right? This, as I said, major project, generational. We want to make sure we get this as right as possible. I think we need plans for the community to see. The points that have come up again and again, memorabilia wasn't allowed to be displayed, which we know there's 2 areas specific for memorabilia and trophies. We haven't seen the management agreement. We don't know that it states in there specifically, you shall not display memorabilia in X areas. Okay, so we can't state that, but that is what's getting passed around. Undercover viewing, okay? So we've got a balcony, grandstand, question the need for it, but our understanding was that that engagement was taken with the stakeholders. That's what we've been told, and we hadn't heard anything to the contrary until just recently, that they were unhappy with how the that grandstand, or lack thereof, had progressed. There was other matters such as fences that were brought up in the media, coaches' boxes, lights. Again, I think they're all sports specific, and it's a matter for the clubs and not for council. I think they are going to be the only users of those facilities, so they should be supporting the effort to install those themselves, not necessarily the entire community in that case. So really, in essence, I am supportive of this motion. I do want to see that we make sure we get things right, but I don't think we can until we get in writing exactly what the sports clubs need.
Does anyone have any other questions of Councillor Nenke or clarification?
I
Yes, I can see you, Councillor Quillen. Can you speak after Councillor Bishop, please?
Okay.
Yep.
The constant comment about the majority of the community and the sheer numbers who are opposed to it, other than the 25 emails, and 4 of those emails, one was Councillor Ninke, one was Bobby Webber, and the other one was Curry, so I don't know that they actually should be counted. Makes it 21 emails, and of those 21 emails of objection, only 10 of them that I could work out were residents or ratepayers of Walkerville. So the Walkerville people are the ones that are ultimately paying for this. We have 8,000 ratepayers or 8,000 residents. It worked out to be 0.00125% of people emailed us or made contact objecting to about this. No one in Medindi has come and spoken to me or objected. Those that have commented in the past said, thank God you're doing something. That place needs to be done up. It needs help. And that's what we're doing, and it's got to be for everybody, not just the sporting clubs. And in amongst those letters was somebody who was dismissal of the softball and the basketball or netball. And I thought, why does the football club and the cricket club think that they dominate? 8 years ago, when I joined this council, both the bowling club and the sports club were in deep financial trouble. The mayor and Councillor Shetliff joined the bowl club to straighten them out. The football
Webster.
And Councillor Webster, thank you. And the football club owed us in excess of 40,000. When we eventually got access to their books, we discovered that they were losing money over the bar. The alcohol was being stolen. So that group, now that they've got their act together, think that they can dictate to us? What happens when there's a change of management up there again and they once again become a difficult group of people to deal with? We have to deal with what we have, the best that we can do for the entire community, not just the sporting clubs.
Councillor Furlan?
Look, I share a lot of concerns that Councillor Wilkins has raised in. There's a lot of conflicting information, and we can't make a decision on inconsistent information. I can only express what I heard, and people can choose whether they believe me or not, but 2 meetings I had with 3 presidents, which involved the architect present for one of those meetings. The overwhelming focus of their attention was around operational issues. And they are good operators. I would have to say clearly those clubs are in safe hands with 3 intelligent, articulate and operationally savvy operators. The issue of the balcony was raised, and I would have expected pushback on it, but I didn't get that. Now, either I'm naive or misread the room, but that was washed over. There was a lot of focus on the logistics of the keg room, the memorabilia room, the audio visual, the timekeepers, access to the kiosk downstairs and its relationship with access to upstairs. And they were all valid points at an operational level from the 3 of those gentlemen. What I'd like to suggest, and whether it will be dependent on how this motion goes, look at it, and it was raised actually during one of these meetings, and in reflection I think it's a good idea and I think it's been considered, is there maybe should be a stage 3 development of this, subject to government funding, where a standalone undercover tiered seating arrangement can exist either on next to this facility, either on the Warwick Street side, which doesn't interfere or impinge on this current design. It allows this current design to proceed in its form, which is ultimately a community centre, all groups, past, present, and future. And I just want to hang on that word, past, present, and future. I get this feeling that the sporting clubs, and I don't know where it could be just my paranoia, that they feel that they may be being pushed out of this. Well, I'm going to make this absolutely clear. That is absolutely not the case. They are fundamental and have been part of the history of Walkerville and the culture of Walkerville in the past, the present, and they will be there in the future. It is cutting off our nose to spite our face to have a facility, a community and sporting facility, which has no sporting clubs involved. So if anyone is in any doubt, me as an elected member, and I'm sure that is expressed by every other person and resident within this community, but let's just say it, that there is a future for those clubs, past, present and future. It makes no sense if they're not. So I just want to put that to rest. But the suggestion that it's subject to funding, government funding, we look to the future where we have a standalone tiered seating arrangement. Once we've developed this facility, bedded it down and have it operating, whether that is a motion that I'd like to propose, subject to whether this motion is successful or not, to be considered by the council tonight. And that's probably where I sit.
Thank you, Councillor Fernand.
Can I ask one more question?
Yes, you may.
What if we defer and we lose the funding? Now, you all say we won't, but a community up in the Adelaide Hills has just lost their funding because they argued so much about where the communication tower was going to go for the bushfire communication, because they were in a black hole, but they lost it. And we're talking about lives. The government withdrew the funding because there was so much debate. So what do we do when we lose the funding?
Sorry, can I ask that? We're not actually asking to defer with this motion. There's nothing in there about deferring the project.
Oh, that's what I read it like.
That's
For
how
a
I
month.
read it.
That's what you said, for a month at least.
Sorry?
Am I like not seeing it correct?
Through your worship, Councillor Joshua, I believe there was commentary in Councillor Ashby's
About the month.
about
Okay,
potentially
about this.
deferring. There was a motion at the last meeting seeking a deferment for a period of time.
I said in my preamble that we had that discussion at the special council meeting, but it was lost and turned down. So there was no. But this night is not about deferring at all. So let's just keep on track.
So basically, I'm wondering, I mean, the discussion that we're having, I see two sides of it. There seems to be more of an operational functionality questions here, which the club rooms are having, as well as the design. But until we don't finalize the design, or we already have, and we've already moved that, but we're going to be fixated on that, and we're going to have issues of the funding, which we've already given a deadline of the work starting in May. So, which I read today in the Mail as well, that we would be starting on the work in May. So I'm wondering, what is this motion really trying to achieve? Is it a question where we're just trying to get more information so that we understand what's going on?
Should I read
That's
it?
one.
Should I read it again?
No, I read it,
Just
but I'm just trying to
answer the
figure out,
question
by
at the
supporting
end.
that, am I deferring what the decision which you've already
It
made?
says to be revised to include a balcony to the upper floor of the southern building. And that this final concept design procedure detailed design phase. It's there. Sorry, Councillor Josh, I'm not trying to. Yeah,
No, I just
I'm
want to be
asking
clear
that.
before I vote for
Okay,
something.
so
Can I just say,
yeah, sure.
it is to agree with the design currently, however, to put a balcony, and please correct me if I'm wrong, a balcony, and then shorten the front, sort of, if you look at the
Warwick
front.
Street. The Warwick
And
Street.
I have to say, I did ask acting CEO to discuss it with the architects to find out roughly how much it was going to be. They couldn't come. Anyway, I'll let you answer.
Your worship, Councillor Link, so we have had a single balcony costed just as an exercise to what it would cost.
Mm-hmm.
The figure that has come back from RLB is $435,000 for a single tiered balcony of 2 metres.
It's not what was in the RLB report.
The RLB report that I received just recently, and I can provide elected members with the email. Councillor Williams, from administration's perspective,
which you're referring to, and it's not actually the balcony.
Administration's role is to enact, implement all the decisions of council and committee, and administration has done that constantly throughout this process. There was a conversation had at the last meeting about putting in a balcony, and we've gone through the process of having that costed. Have received an email late Friday from RLB with an indicative high-level costing of that balcony, $435,000 for the expanse of the building of the southern facade of the building. It impacts the building because it needs to raise the height so that there's clearance for headroom on the lower level, and there's a number of other listings in there. I can make that email available to elected members, as well as the most recent costings for the building as it currently stands at $10.1 million as a result of increasing costs recently. So while Councillor Williams, I appreciate that you may feel that this information is falsified or it's not true, I can provide evidence to this, and it is based on the current market.
Well, see, it's interesting.
Can I just hold you and I'm not, you can talk in 2 seconds. We will need to move the standing orders to be extended for a further 10 minutes. Is everyone happy with that? Councillor Joshi, you have a seconder? Councillor Williams, all those in favour? All those in favour? Thank you, carried just for 10 minutes.
Well, it's interesting because, and I think both Councillor Furl and Councillor Wilkins have hit on a point, is that once again, as I've said, at no stage have we, and I've got different parts of the debate later, at no stage have we heard from the clubs. Now there seems to be a he said, she said sort of thing going on as to administration's or council's view of what's been said and what's occurred, and then the club's views of what's been said and what's occurred. Because, like Rob, I've also had conversations with not only members of the club but the gentleman that you'd spoken about previously, and their version of events are different to the version that we're hearing.
That's what happened.
So really, surely the best solution is to get these guys in, get these people in and hear from them. Surely that's the best solution. Get them in and hear from them.
May I ask a question?
So as we all know previously, I've documented my disappointment as well, because I sent a copy of the list around of the RLB report and all of the different meetings that we had when we, what we received in our agendas, and in the vast majority of occasions, we didn't receive plans. We certainly didn't receive markups on them. So I guess you're in a position where you go, well, you know, what do you believe? You can only believe your own ears. So
well, I can assure you,
I've got
no interest. There is no interest for me to say anything but the truth. And the truth they didn't say a thing.
I've got more to say later, so we'll wait until we get into
Councillor Joshi.
So.
Yeah, because this committee meeting that was there, this is on the Walkerville Oval redevelopment team that I believe Councillor Williams would be a part of. So 1 year that they were there, I mean, was there no communication from the others, or was there nothing about the design? I'm sure all of this would have been planned and said all over again, but why is it just now that I'm hearing all of this discussion or that?
The sections have never come into the committee, and the reason why they have is they've been working in good faith until they got to a point in time where they believed they could no longer keep quiet. They needed to speak to people. They came to me. I believe that they'd also spoken to Councillor Ashby, who was also told earlier on to not speak to the clubs. So, you know, what do you believe?
No, so are you telling me this, like you're telling me that the communication inside our team is not good enough? How are we sitting to get information from other people? So you're telling me this is like misinterpretation?
We'll just have one at a time.
Yeah.
Look,
it doesn't sound good to hear that.
Your Worship, if I may, Councillor Williams, with respect to communications with the club, if you recall, it was your request that signed meeting minutes by both administration and the clubs be undertaken and provided from the meetings and then provided to the committee for their review, and that has happened based on the communication and discussions that have happened within the meetings with the stakeholders. So,
well, I believe we've seen one set.
There's a number of set that have come into the committee from all stakeholders.
We saw a set from December, and also either in that or since then, I also remind that there was a remark in there that it had become apparent to administration that there was little hope existed, that the club as a tenant intended to truly work collaboratively with council to deliver a project, and thus future relationships, I suspect, will continue to remain strained. Now that's a comment that I would like to distance myself from, because as far as I'm concerned, I will always work collaboratively with the clubs or any community groups at all. And I believe that a remark like that doesn't reflect the elected members' feelings, the committee or the committees, and I actually find a little insulting. So I don't think that helps the situation, and once again, I believe some of this has occurred because we haven't had the opportunity to have the people in to speak to council and to the committee. So, and you know, that's just the way I feel.
Your Worship, just pointing out, Councillor Williams, that was not in any meeting minutes. That was in an email from the acting CEO to elected members with regards to the frustrations that had been experienced as a result of dealings with the club.
No, it was actually to the clubs as well. I believe it was to. I believe that it included all of the.
If it was an email. It wasn't meeting minutes. Just for clarification.
No, correct. It was an email. I would need to check who it was to, but I believe that it was to all elected members and also to the clubs. My recollection, I can check.
Can I ask a question? Did our administration not meet with the heads of the sporting clubs? And they are the spokespeople for the sporting club. You're not going to have all 400 people in here. So they are the spokespeople. Did our administration meet on Thursday the 24th of March and were given sign-off, verbal sign-off that they were happy? And because I am led to believe that that was the case, so that on Monday the 28th we had a meeting booked where we signed off on the plans. And on Monday the 28th, we start getting emails. Why had we not got emails months and months beforehand? Why has this all of a sudden happened?
Sorry, it's just, I mean, for me, I knew nothing about it until the last
You've
council
been on
meeting.
council.
Exactly. So isn't that interesting? I knew nothing. We haven't had any workshops, Councillor Bishop. I'm not on the committee.
We have had minutes.
Sorry, let me finish. The CEO even said, or one of the other acting CEO did say that all but Councillor Minky and Councillor Joshi have not really had any exposure to this project, and that is quite. Councillor Joshi, when was the first time you saw the plans? Don't look at me as if...
No, it wasn't the plans that I didn't see. I only saw the thing was only about the grandstand. The plans, and I saw it in the consultation, and I saw the whole process.
But what I suppose... And
I didn't see anything from the community saying that we don't want this or we don't want that.
What I'm asking you, Councillor Josh, is before we walked into the meeting last special meeting 2 weeks ago...
On the 28th.
I mean, realistically, I don't feel that... I mean, I know personally, maybe I'm different here, but I like to have a lot more detail as to what I'm actually making a decision on.
And so do I. In fact, I saw it in the minutes in the previous meeting where he was not agreed and the others had disagreed on the grandstand.
I'll speak for myself then.
No, it was in the minutes. It was in the minutes.
I'm not actually trying to go you, Councillor Joshi. I'm actually...
No, I did see it in the previous one, and that's when I asked him. In fact, I asked him as well what happened, why was it opposed, because it was in the previous minutes.
So what I did ask, Councillor...
And then I came to know it was
Councillors, just in response to Councillor Bishop's question, the meeting was held on Wednesday the 23rd.
Alright, so I'm out by one day, not bad.
And that is correct, with the exception of the kitchen, the size of the kitchen and the need for a hot pass and reconfiguration of that.
That's what they requested.
That's what they requested at that meeting, or reinstated and confirmed that. The building was effectively signed off.
And who was at that meeting?
It was Matt, from memory, it was Matt Hobby and Mark...
So that was minuted?
Yes.
And
it's been signed off by the clubs as minuted?
Has not yet been signed off by the clubs because there was unfortunately a couple of incidents of COVID within the building. So finalisation of that. And Ryan Curry was sent a Teams request which he could not attend.
So as far as I'm concerned, the clubs agreed.
No sign off.
Just
Yeah, but they're not.
Yeah,
objective.
verbal's not good enough.
I'm,
Not for 9.5 million.
but
10.1 now.
the
Councillor
objection,
Williams.
my understanding in the only objection to the minutes is regarding the access to the Oval. Am I correct in
From
that?
recollection, Councillor Bishop, that is correct. And I think it was Matt Hobby that emphasised that.
Because they thought they had always had access to the Oval. They misunderstood and thought they had access to the club rooms.
That's correct.
Sorry,
Which is what.
sorry, can I just ask? So you said this meeting's on the 23rd. When were minutes disseminated to the attendees?
There was an email that was disseminated out to Matt Hobby as part of. It was an attachment to an email which outlined the trail of decisions and discussions, email threads, and as things were discussed in meetings, which clarified the point clearly that council would grant them access to the Oval.
Sorry, I'm just asking about the minutes.
The minutes, it was disseminated on to the presidents. It was clearly stated that it was in draft format and not yet ready for finalisation and sign off. It was merely as a reference point.
So we're almost a month down the track. We don't have sign off. I know you said there were some issues with COVID, but we can all receive emails from home. Yeah.
No, they actually said.
I don't. It doesn't sound like endorsement to me. I'm sorry, Councillor Bishop. Doesn't sound
But
like it's
they-
agreed or signed off.
But the only thing that they have objected
No, but we
to.
don't know what that is. I don't have any evidence of that until we've seen the signed off minutes to say yes, we're absolutely happy with the plans. I don't think we can just take that as gospel that it's signed.
But
Right,
excuse me,
I
everyone.
think
No,
Councillor
stop. It's now
Councillor Ashby
8:11.
hasn't really had
We-
an opportunity.
We can now.
I'll let him have it for.
Well, we're going to have to suspend for 5 more minutes, and that's it. Then we'll put the motion, and we can discuss the motion.
I'm happy
As
to
per the
suspend
motion.
for 5 to give Councillor Ashby.
Thank you,
an
Councillor
opportunity.
Williams. Thank you, Councillor Nicky. All those in favour? You're not in favour. You in favour, Stephen? Councillor Fairland?
Yeah.
Against? Thank you. Carried. Right, Councillor
Right, in
Nicky.
view of Councillor Wilkins need to get away as quickly as possible, I just want to ask Councillor Bishop
Yes.
what right she has to deny Mrs. Hobby, Curry and Webber from having any input. These three gentlemen, they look after about 1,000 kids in terms of the sporting bodies.
The
and
reason
Point of order.
please,
That's enough. Thank you, Councillor.
Well, no, I
she
think it's a point of
continually
order.
interrupts.
Councillor, just one at a
Allowing to
time.
speak. That's
No,
all
One
right.
at a time. Councillor Bishop. Councillor Ashby.
These individuals give their time freely to look after 500 to 1,000 kids plus their families. She talks about sponsors, people from Medindi. I have a brother that lives in Medindi. He and his daughter are partners in an accounting business and are sponsors of the football club, a sports club. They have grandchildren that play there. They're not the verbal ones that make the noise. They're just those silent people in the community that use the facilities and rely on these good people to look after their kids. Now what we should be doing here, instead of chucking rocks at one another, we should forget about a few of the things that have gone on in the past. We've made some mistakes, we all know that. I feel quite guilty about some of the things that have happened or haven't happened. But we've got an opportunity here tonight just to give this one more shot where we get a bit of agreement. And I just think that we ought to take that opportunity, have some respect for one another and listen to what each one's got to say. The other one, just what if the tender comes in at 11 million? We've got all these plans to go ahead and do something. It's got to stop. So we don't want to get too carried away with a month's delay to sort out a few issues. That's probably summing up the motion as much as anything, but
Well, a month, just to clarify, that a month's delay this end, if we got approval, would be a month's delay at the end, which means they would not be able to access the football club until the middle of the year, if not later, next year. Every time, that's the whole point of pushing it, of trying, apart from the fact we have to meet the milestones, but the milestones were set because of the funding. One thing we must also remember, if we did go the way this, to me, the way the motion reads, is if we do put in, do the redesign of the two rows on the balcony and bring it forward, it will put this project well and above 9.5 that we've agreed to spend. We have no extra money. We will have to go back to the community for approval to increase our debt limit. Our debt limit is now at 9.5 million. It's been agreed by the community, but if we have to go higher, which we would, we'd have to borrow another 1 or 2 million to do this, to put on this balcony.
Yeah, look, we've had excuses.
Same
when we go to the architects, oh, it's going to cost another 300 million. When we were looking to do the cover over the, I think we didn't put in a floor. That was saved us a heap of money, but we don't ever seem to save much. We just seem to keep adding to it without thinking about where can we save some money. And well,
the original design, which why it got, if you remember, the balcony was removed and the concrete across the side where we had the sort of interleave between the two buildings, that came in over 12 million. That's why it all got cut out, because we had to bring it back.
Okay. I'd like to just quickly respond, and the reason I excluded the 3 club managers or presidents from those emails is that they have easy access to our administration. They have access and they were in personally and they could express their opinions, whereas everybody else had to do it via email. That is the only reason I excluded them, or didn't count them in the 25.
Right, the motion is
one
now...
month at the other end isn't bad for a 60 or 70 year old building. So.
The motion is now has been moved and seconded. We're now out of standing orders, and it has been moved and seconded. Is there any? Would you like to speak forward to the motion?
I'll just finalise that. Look, there's a lot of discussion about the potential costs. I mean,
sorry,
I just
Councillor
want to.
Nenke, are you because we've been in standing orders for discussion, there hasn't really been debate on the motion.
No, we're now going to. Yes, Tom,
so,
sorry.
Are you talking to it first?
No, I've asked
you
to speak to the motion as you are the mover. You have the right to speak to the motion and then at the end to wind up. So I'm asking you to speak to the motion.
I just wanted to
if you wish. You don't have to.
Sure. Yeah. You got me on that one. Look, I'm conscious that people do have other things planned as well tonight. But look, I suppose look, to me, the original design. No, look, I'm not going to go into all of that. I think what we've been talking about tonight, really, my motion is trying to listen to the community, what my understanding of those that I've spoke to, including the presidents as well, is that having a balcony, I'd rather have it designed within now than having it tacked on in the future or some other grandstand to the side that's going to look out of Walkerville. I'd rather it all moulded in beautifully together. This is our chance to investigate that option. It's something that will.
This says we have to do it.
Yeah, let me finish. Okay, can you just let me finish?
I'm just getting clarification.
Okay. So this is our opportunity to review, have a balcony which will aid the flow into the building, inside and out. It will allow people, because people want to sit outside, they want to go inside, and it's not all about buying beers, but it's also about just having meals after and whatnot. It's about connecting. It's about people being able to meet one another and have a principal place where people can continue to connect. And what I'm asking is that we go down the road, we investigate, we get a cost put on the table, and we see, once the architect can actually design it up, we get the estimated cost come in. And look, if it's $1 million more, then I believe that we'll be going back to that motion, and a special meeting will be called to say, this is the option, we can't afford it, what are we going to do? Right? That'll be your report. But if a report comes in that we can actually afford this, why would we not be trying to get this right? And then we show the community that we are listening to them, and that this building's going to be there for 60 years. We're not going to rebuild another one, so let's just listen. I mean, as I was trying to get in before, that I did ask, you know, the acting CEO back in January that we could have a workshop. I believe strongly in workshops, that we should have all sat around and had this very debate 3 months ago. We could have come up with a better option. We could have fleshed all these problems out, but we are where we are today. So what I'm asking is that we include a balcony, we continue down that road, and we see where it comes out. We have verbal costs. I would like to see them, and I want to put them in a report where they can be viewed by the public as well. But yeah, that's my opening.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Councillor Ashby as the seconder, did you wish to speak now?
Well, I don't think I've got any more to add. I just think that for the sake of just one more go at seeing if I am concerned that we'll build a building which will be a fantastic building, whatever it is, but we want to make sure that everybody, and let's face it, the principal users of this are going to be the sporting and recreation community, and if it's a good facility, which I think it will be, whatever we do with it, will be the extra income and the extra participation from community groups that we get out of it. I think we just need to take a little bit more time. I know there's problems with that, but we don't want to rush in and make it, you know. I just want to take a bit more time.
Does anyone else wish to speak against the motion? Does anyone wish to speak against the motion?
Wish to speak though, Mayor, that's all right.
You may speak, yes.
So my biggest issue with this, and as I said, I'm inclined to support this motion, although I have reservations, and the only reason I do is because I've got no evidence to say that this is actually what the sports clubs want. I've spoken to Councillor Nenke and Councillor Williams in the past 2 weeks. We need to have it documented exactly what they want. Is this going to be enough for them, or is it still going to create a whole heap of things because we haven't addressed X, Y and Z? I don't have the evidence there to say this will do it. The other problem I have is that I have any evidence that what the previous plans were endorsed either. We don't have those minutes, we don't have them signed off. So I'm very much caught here, not really knowing if this is going to do it. I think it's a good idea, and pending financial limitations that we have as a project, I'm still very much, unsure about whether this is actually going to do the job. Get us over the line, get us moving, because we need to get moving on this.
Might I suggest we get those minutes, we forget this motion at the moment, we set it aside, we get those minutes signed, and we meet Friday and we vote on it Friday. Because I met with Matt Hobby and he was relaxed. They were in here last week and they were relaxed.
A lot of people aren't. Sorry, Councillor Bishop.
No one's told me about it.
And how many? I'll be perfectly honest, Councillor Williams. They had every opportunity to bring it up. They chose not to. And that really disappointed me because they were given lots of opportunities.
Aren't relaxed. I'm saying that not everyone is relaxed in the community, right? Because we're getting a lot of
25.
feedback.
We had 25 emails.
Yeah, and that's the most. Is that the most you've ever had out of any issue?
No.
It's the most I've had out of any issue in 3 years, including the YMCA.
The most I've ever had was the Mary P. Harris. And we stopped that development and we'll never go back to it. And
that's something we could actually think about now.
Let's please keep that on track, please, Mayor.
Pardon?
Please keep that on track. We're not talking about Mary.
I was asking.
No, I was saying that's where we're looking at.
Mary P. Harris.
Look, I can say that the presence and not.
Sorry, Councillor, we get a chance at the end and just conscious of time.
Fair enough.
If Councillor Bishop's finished
yes.
her speaking against, I'd like to speak in favour and just read something out that's not long that I've written. I've documented to all elected members and administration previously my concerns regarding the process Council has undertaken with the Walkerville Oval redevelopment. I've brought to the attention of Council the lack of information that the committee has received, namely plans not being presented as part of the agenda, only receiving verbal updates. Unlike when changes are made to our policies, we have not received track changes that identify changes from one set of plans to another, and so forth. I also believe that we're in breach of our terms of reference by not elevating to Council matters of a significant nature not previously considered by Council. And interestingly, yesterday, a past president of the Walkerville Sports Club, Malcolm Ailiff, contacted me and made a very pertinent point. The main difference between the Walkerville Oval proposal and other sporting club redevelopments such as Campbelltown, where he used to play, is that the current proposal takes away from the clubs a feature of the building that is important to their functionality, the balcony and grandstand that is, rather than building on the years of improvements and its rich history. Neither the elected members nor the Walkerville Oval Redevelopment Committee has at any stage visited other redevelopments or heard in person from the end users of the clubs. Sport is likely to be played in the vicinity for a long time after we are no longer the decision makers. Let's make sure we give the sports and bowling clubs that are both in excess of 100 years old the best opportunity to still be around in another 100 years. And interestingly, tonight I got a text as well through from one of the presidents of the club saying, good luck, hopefully common sense prevails. He had read both James and Rob's documents in the agenda and he thought they were very good. So, there's...
Thank you, Councillor Williams, but as a point of correction, yes, some of us did go and visit grandstands and community centres and facilities, and one I didn't go to, which was down at Lockleath. Councillor Ashby went and provided lots of photos.
We never did as a committee.
No, but we were all told, we were all suggested we actually went and did it, and most of us did. Right, is there anyone else wish to speak? If not, Councillor Nicky.
Councillor Phelan.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Phelan, my apologies.
Sorry. Well, I just wanted to get down to the one point. This is $1 million decision tonight, with all these additions, based on a complete 180-degree range of versions of whether that is right or not. Because the information that's coming is, it's yes, it's no, it's maybe, I've heard this, I've heard that, could be that. We're going to spend, I'm just going to use a round number, throw in $1 million and hope that we've got it right. And we could get it right, but it may not be enough because it might not be exactly what everyone wants. I'm just wondering whether people are ready for this change and whether they actually really want to move forward. Is there too much of a fear for a new development site? Because I've been living in Walkerville for 30 years and this whole development has been talked about at least 10 plus years. Maybe there's too much fear to want to move ahead with it, and maybe it's just we've got to keep what we've got and just learn to live with that, because we're spending $9.5 million, once in a lifetime opportunity to get government funding. We may be able to extend it, we may not. We don't even know the answer to that. It may be $1 million. Will it be enough? Will it actually satisfy the needs? Clearly, communication communication is subjective, and I think there's so many scenarios here of who's right, who's wrong, who said this, who said that, and tonight here we are, we have to make the $1 million decision. I mean, and I hope we got it right, that's a tough call to be able to require that. And that's really, where I'm thinking now. It's, put the finger in the air and hope, you've got it right. Gee, not enough. I don't believe there's accurate information that we've got. I don't know. I can only tell you, I had conversations one-on-one with 3 individuals, and now I'm hearing completely different stories. But I was at that meeting.
of us did.
So, you know, yeah. So, yeah, that's, yeah. Confusion reigns supreme here. So, that's all I've really got to say.
Thank you, Councillor Furley. Right, would you like to wind up, please?
Yeah. Thank you. And with respect to Stephen Furlan, or Councillor Furlan, I should say, I've got no idea where this $1 million has all of a sudden come from, extra. Along with, yeah, I know, but it's pretty fearful. You could have said 100,000. You didn't have to say $1 million, Stephen. Yeah, so I'm sorry, but that's I don't appreciate. Sorry, mate. You've lost me there. I'm actually closing. I'm actually closing.
It's fine. I just wish to correct you there.
What?
I've already stated earlier that a one row for the balcony we've had quoted at $465,000.
Not $1 million.
We'll multiply that by 2, and you're getting pretty close. You know, that's
Hang
where the
on,
$1
sorry,
million
what am I multiplying by 2?
The mover has the
No,
right.
that was, he quoted that for 400,000. It's not double quoting.
It
You're
is
putting
good,
fear
yeah.
tactics out there, man, and I don't appreciate it.
No, it is.
Now let me
good.
finish, right? So this $1 million, and also Councillor Furlan was talking about getting it right with, you know, the wind and have we got it right? Well, they've got a grandstand today, and they have an undercover viewing today, and it seems to work pretty damn well. And as Councillor Williams was trying to suggest, that Campbelltown Oval didn't have any undercover viewing, and now they do. So it's all, you know, seen as a success. But here we are on the opposite. We're actually removing it when we've already got it, and that's that's something that we've really got to consider. And I'm going to just close here. The original design at the start of this whole project included a grandstand. This was including that big wraparound building that went around. It had a grandstand, and that was also on the postcard that was sent out to all the residents right from day dot. Now all that was asking was a simple yes or no to redeveloping the Oval, providing no real options or costs. It didn't ask any questions. The majority of residents supported the project that was marketed using a building with a grandstand. The grandstand was included in that picture. In November 21, not that long ago, the concept design that came to council had a grandstand. Had removed the grandstand, but included a balcony. So I'm sitting there in November thinking, okay, we've got a balcony. And then at some point in time, the balcony was removed from the design. Nothing came to council about that. That's a pretty big omission. So we've gone from a grandstand to nothing, and apparently resulting from a cost-saving exercise. However, so we're having a cost-saving exercise to remove a balcony, but then we can still get a massive veranda overhang that wasn't there previously. So how did that come out? The veranda of the balcony followed the veranda around. It didn't have that overhang. That is a new feature. This building remains outlandish in design. However, the only cost to be saved was removing the outdoor viewing area, being the balcony. So I really didn't want to go into all of this, to be honest, but the viewing platform on the northern side above the cafeteria can only be considered as viewing for those who stand along the balcony front. The remaining area in the middle and back has no rear view, has no view of the Oval, and that is logical. The linear outdoor spectator space is reduced considerably to the existing grandstand seating capacity that maintain a view and an opportunity to cheer and support. The ability to sit above the field of play and spectate provides a much greater experience. And that's, look, and I'm going to extend that to if we do use it as a community club and we have workshops and conferences there, how great would it be if during their break they could actually walk out, get some fresh air and sit on the balcony and look over the Oval? I think it'd be a great feature for this building. We've never actually consulted with our community with what design elements are important to them, providing options with estimated costs. We have, however, recently reviewed a wave of emails and phone calls screaming out for a balcony at a minimum. This has been our community engagement. This is local democracy, and it's important that we listen. You must have a view that we have only heard from members of a sports club. However, the reality of it is that the sports club is made up of a huge portion of families within our community, and it's that community that makes the township of Walkerville. Any community engagement exercise we would run would result in a similar outcome. We would have listened and designed accordingly. We would have ended up with a balcony. I'm curious why we have engagement events with gazebos and staff and elected members taken to residents for traffic issues in Medindie and reserve upgrades like Hamilton, where we invite residents to leave their comments. We never did for our $8 million project that's now 9.5 in a venue that was 1,000 times more participation than any other project we've done. We must support our clubs that deliver so many community outcomes from our major sporting precinct. What other community services does council deliver that even can be compared to the sheer involvement? I strongly believe that the clubs deliver more community outcomes than most people do recognise.
Thank you.
Let's just include a balcony. Alright, let's review the costs, let's get them on paper. We can, if it blows out to $1 million like Councillor Furlan is suggesting, of course it's going to come back to council. But I don't believe it's going to. I think once we start, we're going to reduce the floor area of the upstairs area too. Saving per square metre of that, along with the removal of the overhang. I'm sure there's other savings the architects can find. We can still get that balcony in without compromising the overall design. This is our last chance, people. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Menke. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour of the motion? Against? Thank you. It's carried. Right, moving on.
Can I ask a question on that? So what happens now?
No, next point. Point of order, we need to move on to the next agenda item.
I'll explain. 14.3 operational elected member appointments to council committees and boards. As you're all aware, Councillor Wilkins is on a leave of absence. Councillor Coleman has, although he has advised that he will be returning the 1st of May. So, because Councillor Wilkins is on leave of absence, we are needing another proxy representative for audit. Does anyone express an interest, to be honest, to go on to audit?
No.
Please, someone.
Another proxy.
Councillor Ashby, would you be interested? You have filled that void a couple of times.
I have, I don't want to see council not functioning, so I'll take.
Thank you, Councillor Ashby. In regards to the Walkerville Oval Redevelopment Committee, we already have Councillor Furlan acting as a proxy. So we need another, and it will only be for a short time. The meetings are held on Thursday at 10:30. Councillor Necki, just to let you know.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, it will only be the occasional time you'll be required.
I appreciate that, and that's why I've made myself available.
Thank you, Councillor Necki. Right, would someone move that Councillor Ashby fill the vacancy as a proxy representative for audit and Councillor Necki a proxy representative for the Walkerville Oval Redevelopment? Are you moving, Councillor Furlan?
Yes, if that's okay.
You may. May I have a seconder, please? Councillor Williams. All those in favour? Thank you. Carried. Community Fund application. Ella Copeland has requested funds, and we've assisted her, as you can see in the report, a few times. She's done quite well from memory.
I'm happy to put forward that motion. I hope she
for
does
150.
well. For 150, and I wish her well. She's doing well.
Yep. May I have a seconder? Councillor Williams. All those in favour? Thank you. Carried. That's good. Subsidiaries. The recession motion, Eastern Health Authority. All the papers were in your reading. Councillor, Scott, did you wish to just make any comments?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. So I think the detailed report speaks for itself, as you can see, based on the motions that are passed by Council. Previously, administration have gone out to EHA and the constituent council, sought legal advice about the process to withdraw our letter of withdrawal, and the report before you comes with a motion that all constituent councils and the board are happy for council to remain, and then simply a letter dictating that to, or advising EHA of the town of Walkerville remaining as a constituent council is what needs to be done.
Thank you, Scott. Are there any questions on the motion? If not, would someone move the motion? Councillor Nenke? Did Councillor Ashby, were you seconding that motion?
No, I was dreaming, sorry.
Is there a seconder? You will?
Mm.
Are you happy to? Thank you. Does anyone have any questions of the motion, or does anyone speak to the motion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? All those in favour? Against?
I'm not in favour.
No, I was just checking because some hands were up, some weren't. Thank you. Carried. We move on to 15. Identification of items for individual.
Individual.
Identification of items for individual consideration. 16.3.1 monthly works report. 16.3.2 monthly financial report. 16.3.3 community services quarterly report, January through to March. 16.3.4 decisions of special council assessment panel. 16.3.5 Walkerville Oval redevelopment committee minutes. 16.3.6 Women of Walkerville committee minutes. 16.41 Era Water board meeting minutes. And 16.4.2 Eastern Health Authority board minutes. As no one, and 16.5, sorry, next one, and the outstanding council resolutions and actions. Would someone move that those items be moved as per the recommendations? Councillor Bishop, may I have a seconder? Councillor Williams, all those in favour? All those in favour? Thank you. Carried. We don't have any correspondence, nor do we have any urgent other business. We do have one confidential item. So would someone move that we go into confidence? Thank you, Councillor Bishop. Seconder, Councillor Ashby. All those in favour? All those in favour? Thank you. Carried. Thank you. We've now moved out of confidence at, I can't see that time, 8:45, 46. Thank you. I now declare...
Sorry, ma'am, just a very quick question for you, close. I'm just wondering, with all the changes in COVID restrictions and everything at the moment, obviously no mask wearing, can people start attending the gallery again, or when are we looking at?
I was going to ask the CEO, acting CEO, that tomorrow.
Okay, there you go. There you go.
Your Worship, I can answer that. We have a meeting on Friday morning with the LGA to discuss basically the transition from the current situation for all councils to open up.
Yep.
So it's likely I can provide an answer to elected members following that meeting on Friday.
Very good. Thanks. Thank you.
Okay, I now declare the meeting closed at 8:46. Thank you, Councillor Furlan, for joining us from Queensland.
No problem.
Enjoy the rest of your week.
Good.